Yeah. Welcome, folks, to the second annual Cut Your Heart Out. Roses are red, my fingers are blue, dialing in from the outside. And this is Frontline Arts and Warrior Writers, our Zoom convergence hive mind of art and spoken word, brought to you on Valentine's. Now, you don't have to partake on Valentine's Day. You can be an anti, you can be a ardent advocate, or you could be merely ambivalent and just kind of hanging out wanting some fun. But it's also a deep recognition of this last month, since January, of things that brought us to our knees and rose up our collective spirits. And so even though God knows we've got work to do, let's take a moment today and just kind of rest in this space of our community and just kind of like breathe in and celebrate that shimmer of hope that's in the air. So without further ado, I pass it to our stalwart leader, poet laureate of Warrior Writers, New Jersey, Jan Berry.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. I just got out of the shower. I had a quarter of a cup of coffee. This is amazing what we can do with Zoom. We've been almost a year now doing our writing workshops online. Is that astounding?
Almost a year. Wow.
Almost a year, yeah. So I didn't have a whole lot of things I wanted to say here at the very beginning. But I think Tara covered it very well in terms of we're doing a combination of celebrating an event, which is frankly not one of my favorite holidays. And
the candy the second day when it's on sale is great.
On the other hand, acknowledging that we can acknowledge what's going on around us in all kinds of artistic, creative ways. And so I don't know whether we're still waiting for some people to get on, but we do have a lineup of people who are going to do some spoken word or talk about art. But I think we're going to start off with an art show that Tara and her son Raf had put together.
Rachel, would you have anything before we cue the video film strip?
Sure. A pre-film strip couple of sentences here. Hi and welcome everyone to our now apparently annual pro-anti morbid Valentine's event, Cut Your Heart Out. This was also one of the very last public events that we had before the shutdown last year. And it's a bit sad, but also heartening to see it continue virtually. So our initial tagline of "Roses are red, my fingers are blue" was in hopes of conducting it outside and to continue with the morbidity. But this has turned out to be one bear of a winter. So here we are virtually. And I'm also really thrilled to see the massive coordination with our veteran community and warrior writers today. And I know this is slated for potential discussion later, but last night I did finally watch Talia Lugassi's film, This Is Not a War Story, with so many of you here starring in it. And I was blown away. It's absolutely friggin' incredible, and I would highly recommend if anyone hasn't seen it yet. but it really made me miss all of you in the studio so damned much.
There we go.
Everyone cutting rag and making pulp and giving inking advice together. Darn. But I see Mark's in the studio, so he's gonna channel those vibes. And we're gonna do this in Zoom. So I'll be talking again in a little bit, but thank you so much, Tara and Paula and Jan and everyone and Lindsay for doing all the engineering. Thank you for coordinating this today. And thanks everyone for watching on this COVID Valentine's.
COVID Valentines. Okay, let me see whether we have Lindsay at the command center. Lindsay with the mostest that continues to astound us with her growing leadership, and just one more skill of graphic designer, as well as a kick-ass artist, a coordinator of programs, and a teacher on the front lines. So let me try this of sharing my screen and cue.
Nancy.
Okay.
Flying in.
Are we losing music?
Who's that? Oh, really? Man, that's just amazing. Are we frozen here?
Hope not.
Because I could see you guys moving and talking.
Yeah.
So,
Does she have to unfreeze herself?
she just, I think she lost connection and it just exited out. So hopefully she'll be back soon.
So being moved. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. No.
Apologies. Yeah, Sparta Mountain, electricity, God knows what. Maybe it's gremlins. All I can say is bleep, 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 Mercury retrograde. Okay. So this up, please.
That's good.
could you make me screen host again, or host? Cool.
And could everyone be sure to mute themselves? I think we heard a bunch of talking during the slideshow.
I'm just trying to unmute Richard, but it's not letting me do that.
And I need to be,
Hi, can you hear me? I called in on the phone, so I'm just going to listen on the telephone, and when the art comes up, I'll watch the art. Sorry about that.
and Paula, can you make me host once again?
You know what? It's not letting me do it this time. You were hosting.
Yeah, I got one chance and I'm out of there.
Make host. You are.
It's a tough crowd.
Now you're the host.
Okay, thank you, madam. Okay. To the beginning. And let her rip.
Flying in.
Okay. Well, yeah, I love this community of teeming, gorgeous. What was it in Talia's film, This Is Not a War Story, that Sam said? He said, jarring art. Oh, I love it. Jar our souls, jar our spirit, send our sanity out to the collective universe, and we will make our imagined futures rock. From our lips to the ears of the gods. So without further me babbling, I will pass it on to my esteemed co-poet, Jan, to tee us up for the spoken word. Now, artists, when we'll be having both poetry offerings and the artists coming and giving their talks, or at least explaining. One of the things you'll hear me making the phrase is make an offering of your poetry, making an offering of your art. And this comes out of the Dharma art practices of a Buddhist artist sangha, you know, a collective, a community, where our art is offered, and it's such a humble, beautiful way, is that we offer it to the viewer, we offer it to our larger sangha, our larger community, because in that way it matches with, and we hope then that the energy of the art of the offering really catalyzes a beautiful spark of manifesting it. So, Jan, please, sir. And I posted for those participants, I've posted, can you see it in the chat, the lineup? There we go.
I'm going to ask each person who speaks to introduce themselves. I have a problem here with my phone keeps going off and then locking itself, and then I have to unlock it.
Well, I have it here. I have it here.
Okay. We're starting off with Kevin Basil, who can tell us a little bit about where he is.
Thanks, Jen. I'm up in Trumansburg, New York, not too far from where Jan grew up. It's a beautiful snowy day. Well, it's not snowing anymore, but it was. Yeah, and I've been active in this community since 2012, and it's really been inspiring and incredible, and it's kept me active as an artist over the years, and I'm really thankful for that. So I'm going to read 3 short poems. This first one, they're all new. I don't think I've shared these before with this community. This is called Camaraderie, Iraq 2005. It's July and I have not had a drink in 8 months except something called Coors non-alcoholic malt beverage. Nevertheless, I feel hungover, riding in the Humvee with Doc and listening to nu metal. We do not know where we are going. We are just patrolling. If I hold my mouth open for too long, my tongue will turn to sandpaper. Yet I do not drink water because my piss bottle is already full of Doc's snuff spit. He smiles at me. At any moment, something could explode. That's after Raymond Carver. This next one is called Nonviolence. Find it here. The college course on Gandhi I took after leaving the army taught no rage, no bullets, no bombs, but the courage and truth of a great mass of people sitting in, boycotting, striking, can transform an opponent's heart, make them stop the oppression. But say a madman with a sword starts cutting your neighbors down, a man with no conscience nor reason. Gandhi offered a clause on this, said, stop the man, use whatever means are necessary, for one does more violence to let a killer run amok, a man with no conscience nor reason. Now we wish to summon the great teacher, ask, what are we to do, when a congregation of madmen with semi-automatic swords come to terrorize our village. And this last one that I'm going to read is called Presence. For Laura. If you were here, if you had stayed, you would kindly ask me now, why, my love, did you rough up the sheets, wrestle them into an amorphous mass while sleeping? My problems. Our bed made from discount lumber, cut to fit inside my Civic. If you were here, if you had stayed, you would kindly say to me, my love, the house did not fall, trap you beneath. The boy from Balad did not call, asking you return the kafia he once gifted you. Yes, I sleep talk, change the subject, fail to cry, laugh when it's time to listen. Perhaps tonight you are laughing, with new friends, a lover, or sleeping diagonally in a sturdy queen-sized bed. Can you believe 4 years have passed since we watched the full moon eclipse, huddled together for warmth? The night you taught me presence, the night I learned I need to let go. Tonight, if you came back, I promised I would share the person who is here now. That's what I got. Incidentally, Laura and I are just fine, in case you're wondering. She did come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy endings.
Yeah.
Woo.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have Nate Lewis on our list, but we don't see him online yet. And so the next person that we have here
You
is,
can cycle back to him when he joins.
yeah, Rich Clary. Is he online? Don't see him. Ron Erickson.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody. Normally say, hi, I'm Ron and I'm alcoholic. So some people can laugh at that. Anyways, I'm going to read today a poem that I was introduced to at the beginning, sort of this pandemic. There was this online thing called, which had been an in-person thing, I guess, called Universe in Verse. And I heard, I think she was an astrophysicist or an astronaut, I'm not sure which, read this poem. And then I went and looked it up and heard Maya Angelou read it. And so I'm going to read it to you. It's a poem that touched me deeply and has been in my psyche this past year. I've listened to it many, many times over the year. And it's called A Brave and Startling Truth by Maya Angelou. And it says, dedicated to the hope for peace, which lies sometimes hidden in every heart. We, this people on a small and lonely planet, traveling through casual space, past aloof stars, across the way of indifferent suns to a destination where all signs tell us it is possible and imperative that we learn a brave and startling truth. And when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from fists of hostility and allow the pure air to cool our palms. When we come to it, when the curtain falls on the minstrel show of hate, and the faces sooted with scorn are scrubbed clean, when battlefields and coliseum no longer rake our unique and particular sons and daughters up with bruised and bloody grass to lie in identical plots in foreign soil. When the rapacious storming of the churches, the screaming racket in the temples have ceased, when the pennants are waving gaily, when the banners of the world tremble stoutly in a good, clean breeze. When we come to it, when we let the rifles fall from our shoulders and the children dress their dolls in flags of truce, when landmines of death have been removed and the aged can walk into evenings of peace, when religious ritual is not perfumed by the incense of burning flesh, and childhood dreams are not kicked awake by nightmares of abuse. When we come to it, then we will confess that not the pyramids with their stones set in mysterious perfection, nor the gardens of Babylon hanging as eternal beauty in our collective memory, not the Grand Canyon kindled into delicious color by Western sunsets, nor the Danube flowing blue soul into Europe, not the sacred peak of Mount Fuji stretching to the rising sun, neither Father Amazon nor Mother Mississippi, who without favor nurtures all creatures in the depths and on the shores. These are not the only wonders of the world. When we come to it, we, this people, on this minuscule and kithless globe, who reach daily for the bomb, the blade, and the dagger, yet who petition in the dark for tokens of peace. We, this people on this mote of matter, in whose mouths abide cankerous words which challenge our very existence, yet out of those same mouths come songs of such exquisite sweetness that the heart falters in its labor and the body is quieted into awe. We, this people on this small drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living. Yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness. The haughty neck is happy to bow, and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world. That is when, and only when, we come to it.
Whoa.
Thank you. I love that poem.
Ron, thank you. Thank you for that gift.
Ron, could you talk for just a minute about that uniform that's hanging behind you?
Sure. Yeah, this is part of the Wheaton Heavy Rescue Squad #2 turnout gear. It was sent to us by Roger Marks, and you saw a piece earlier that Walt had made what we call a tribute piece, that Roger had sent us one of his blouses, and we had made pulp from it, from his uniform, which I probably have some of it here. And he sent us this turnout gear. I don't believe, so they contacted us because one of their young firefighters committed suicide last year. And he contacted us right away because he had heard this captain who had participated in 3 years of workshops at Walter Reed with our folks that go down there, and had been turned on to this idea that our program could help to unlock some of the pain that all these people carry with them on a daily basis. And so we're trying to make paper from a Kevlar jacket. Not easy, but we're going to get it done. I just recently cut up some of the threads, and I'm going to put them in the blender today, and with some so here I'll show you. You saw some of the paper up close, but
Wow.
yeah, I want it to be more like our combat paper, where it's a sort of a uniform thing. And right now, this is more of like an inclusion. I want the Kevlar to become more part of the pulp. And so I'd gone online onto the hand paper making group on Facebook, and I got a lot of great feedback on how to approach this. So we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna send some of this paper once after I make the new paper today. I'll send it to Roger so that he can have some of this. Yeah, that's all.
That's amazing, Ron, that you had the wherewithal to figure it out and the artisanry to pull that off. That's meaningful paper.
Yeah, fantastic. Our next participant speaker is, Nancy Nygaard.
Nancy, take it away.
Right. Let me.
I have 3 short pieces I'd like to read. My mother was born on Valentine's Day. I was born on my parents' 6th wedding anniversary. Who gets married in November? My memory holds a photograph of my father in his army uniform, jacket open, leaning into a couch with his leg crossed, cigarette in one hand, and his arm on the back of the couch behind my mother, sitting next to him. Her legs are crossed, dress above the knee. She's smiling coyly, her hair done up on top of her head. Next to her on the couch is Lou Reepstein in his army uniform, my father's close friend and witness at their wedding. For years growing up, we would go visit Lou and his family in Great Neck, New York. I could still draw a picture of their house floor plan, and they had a really cool deck on top of their garage. The thought that these 2 men, my dad, had served in a war never entered my young, uninformed brain, and the chance to know him is way past. Brownies. I have a few brownie stories. Once I made a brownie mix, not from a box, and then I put in a frying pan half an ounce of pot, circa 1970, and moved it around in the pan until it just started smoking, and then put it in the brownie mix and baked it. I took it to work with me the next day in Manhattan because that night I was going to meet my boyfriend, Kevin, at the Fillmore, and we were going to see either the Moody Blues or Grand Funk Railroad. I really don't remember. But for some reason it was canceled, and I didn't find out until I got down to the Fillmore and saw the marquee. And where was Kevin? And how many brownies did I have already? Where was a cell phone when I needed one? I found a phone booth, but that couldn't find Kevin's cell phone, which he didn't have either because it was 1970. So I'll just say I went to work the next day in the same clothes from the day before. I curled over and crossed my arms while making fists, trying to hold the anger down, not wanting to hear it or see it, because there isn't that much time left. And the thing is, no one knows. So reality sucks. The real world hurts. And yes, I see beauty in my grandchildren's eyes, the same eyes seen in the children in Afghanistan, forever at war. If I'm lucky to have 20 birthdays more, is it fair to just want fun? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Nancy.
Well, I think I am the next on our list. I'm trying to read something on another computer with my glasses, which only half work. Well, one eye works and the other eye is getting worse. These are from my notebook from our weekly Warrior Writers writing workshops. These are a couple, three recent poems. I need a second wind to get to Valentine's Day. I'm exhausted by holidays. Christmas started before Thanksgiving. New Year's stretched between 2 years. Inauguration Day set off a virtual civil war. Can you imagine if Trump's coup had overthrown the Dems? We'd be compelled to celebrate a new national holiday on January 6th.
She's pretty.
I think things were bad already. Recovering from being snowed in, it's snowing again. There's nothing in the bird feeders. This is on us, whether the sparrows survive, along with cardinals, finches, wrens, grackles, and the rest. Oh my God, I'll have to get dressed. I like winter birds, how they zip and zoom. I think they invented Zoom.
Very good, Jan.
What?
Okay, the next on our list is Joanne Droz.
I have the privilege of reading her work. Joanne couldn't be here. Joanne is a member of our weekly Sunday Warrior Writers New Jersey calls, and she is a military mother as well as a military daughter, and her son served twice in Afghanistan.
Yes, I know. We're not muted.
And she has two poems. The first poem is Mental Illness. Difficult to wrap your head around, working to put the pieces of a life back together. Where do you start? How to repair what's been torn away. Relationships broken, hearts broken. Her second poem, Insurrection. Lunacy abounds, misguided con job of a cult leader, breaching the Capitol, stop the steal, overturn a fair and just election in America. Our law and order president and his enablers sicked their followers on the people's house. As my son put it, there are many reasons to storm the Capitol, but to try and undo an election is not one of them. Double standards run amok. Systematic racism doesn't exist. If this were a Black Lives Matter run on the Capitol, hundreds, if not thousands, would lay dead on the streets, unable to enter our house. Injustice, inequality, endless wars, and climate change are far better reasons to launch an assault on the Capitol. But those are products of this, but those that are products of this have much more restraint than the crazed masses that swallowed the bullshit of a megalomaniac. Yet the threats that were well reported went unheard. There was little done to protect our house from the frenzy rage that ensued January 6, 2021. Why?
Hey, Joanne.
All right.
Hey to Joanne.
Okay, the next up is Walt Nygaard.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm going to read two quick things. The first one, I dashed off at a Warrior Writers workshop. So a couple of you have heard it, and I beg your pardon. It was written last spring when the COVID was really crashing into New York and New Jersey. I didn't know Jim Goodrich. I don't think I know any pediatric neurosurgeons. And if I did, I certainly never met one who had the guts, the brains, and the skill of hand to separate two baby boys conjoined at birth by the tops of their heads, blood vessels intertwined through both of their brains. Dr. Goodrich was the director of pediatric neurosurgery at Montefiore Medical Center, where he'd worked for 30 years and where he died 2 weeks ago in a battle with the COVID virus. Lest anybody forget, Dr. Goodrich was born in Portland, Oregon in 1946, and before he went to college at the University of California and Columbia University, he was a United States Marine and he served in Vietnam. I didn't know Jim Goodrich, but maybe I did. That was last spring. And it's been a long year. And since that time, I know I'm not the only one who half the time can't remember what day it is or even what month it is. And now it's kind of hard to even remember that it's a different year. And so one Sunday recently, I wrote this to kind of keep me adjusted. Monday's coffee tastes like mud. Tuesdays taste the way it should. Wednesday, I just stick to juice. Thursday, wonder what's the use. Friday, I go out to find. Saturday, I lose my mind. Sunday, I'm my only friend, thinking I'll just start again on Monday. Monday, I will clean my drawers and long gone home in foreign wars. I'll clean my room to empty space and try to join the human race. I'll think of all of those I've loved and hotline drives I should have gloved, and all the races that I've run and all the things I should have done on Monday. On Monday, smoke a good cigar. And Tuesday, go and drive my car. On Wednesday, I'll try making art. Thursday, I'll be torn apart. Friday, I will laugh out loud. Saturday, play dumb but proud. On Sunday, I will count my luck and be okay when I get up on Monday. Thank you.
Nice, very nice.
All right. Ah. Next up on our batting lineup is Mark Oldman.
Hey, so really, I don't have any magical poems to read like everyone else. I just figured I'd give some background to the piece that I submitted. So you'll see that it's an iPad drawing. It's something I've been doing a lot of those of late, especially since of COVID. And oftentimes they do very directly influence the work that I'm doing. And the reason I selected the one I submitted was mainly because it's called Fantail Thoughts, and it's really about me. It was done from memory, but it's really the thoughts and the images that evoke in my memory from when I was in the Coast Guard, standing on the fantail with shipmates, because that's where you stand and hang out, and seeing the wake going in and drifting in behind. And so, given that the theme was a Valentine's theme and talking about things that we love and everything like that, I felt like that would be appropriate for today. So that's really the primary reason for that submission, and that's the background behind it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
What is he? I wonder what are you making today, Mark? Did he hear that? Oh, maybe he didn't.
So great to see you in the studio. Oh, what a gift.
Oh, that's what.
Whoa.
Wow. Oh, put it up closer. Oh, that is amazing.
Oh, your work moves. Oh.
He has to say something, so he comes up.
Oh, he's on mute.
Oh.
Mark, if you unmute and talk, we can actually see your picture larger. Oh, good.
I'm sorry, I forgot that I was on mute. Yeah, so this is it's a 30 by 40 monotype.
Whoa.
Thanks to Ron. Shout out to Ron for making the 30 by 40 sheets. This is one of those images that started out as a iPad drawing. And I've just been kind of experimenting with, using the monotype process to get this large piece completed. So this is the first, this is actually probably about 2 layers. And then I'm working on putting another layer out today.
It's beautiful.
Mark, do you register it? I mean, are all those layers of different monoprints in the colors?
Well, it's really just two runs through the press, and it was a wet on wet because it was 1 day's worth of work. So I didn't let that one dry in between, and so it's completely dry now. And now I'm going to put kind of another layer on top of it. But no, it was just really just hand read, like I just hand lined it up and just was trying to see what I could get out of it, using mainly painting techniques onto the monotype plate, using the acrylic inks and mixing them and seeing what I can get, because it's really my first go through with this larger piece with the monotype and also just monotyping in general.
When you roll it in the second time in the wet on wet, how are you feeling what do the inks do together? How are you managing
Well,
that?
I mean, they tend to mix. It bleeds a lot more than you expect, I think. But I also laid it on a little bit thicker than probably most people do. But that's just a product of how I typically paint.
Right.
And then I did fill in some of the gaps where I didn't want it. It didn't come through exactly the way I wanted it to, with some just rolling directly onto the paper, rolling up in the area. I don't know if I'm going to do that much of that type of technique anymore, but just really experimenting with different things to see what works.
That's exciting. Gosh, and shout out to Ron and Walt for taking us in from the smaller Frontline paper into the humongous 30 by 40. We didn't have that capability. I mean, sure, we could use bought paper. We could, just like my Joan of Arc thing, run it off on newsprint and throw it on the wall. But Ron, you built a specific mold. You want to talk about how you build that mold and took us bigger?
Well, yeah, and big hand to Walt for coming to my driveway and helping me work this out, because we had no idea what we were doing. I built the mold basically using techniques that I investigated, online and stuff. There's this wonderful mold maker in Belgium who photographs all of his parts before assembling the mold. So I could literally look at like what he had made and said, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. I can probably do that. There's a joint that he uses that I don't think I'll ever figure out quite. I did build it once, but mine is very weak, so I'm not sure the point of that joint if it's supposed to be like mine, because it ended up breaking. But it was wanting to have 30 by, it was paper really. The whole thing started because you had that, Joan of Arc, and we needed a 30 by 40 to print it on, and we could get it from Nate.
Shout out to Nate. Yeah, shout out to Nate, because that's what we had. Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to Nate or whoever made that video of them having that party up there, pulling all those 30 by 40 sheets. Kevin was doing that with Nate and I think Joe Merritt was up there with you guys that night. Forget who else was in that video, but I watched that and said, oh yeah, okay. We've not replicated it yet, but we'll get there. So, yeah.
Great.
All right, neat. Next up is Richard Enoch.
Oh, I don't think I have a piece, but I can go to a piece that I read. If you hold on a second.
Sure.
I was thinking of doing bigger on the storm piece, but I didn't want to. Was having trouble with the format, so. All right, I'm pulling up my my workshop pieces now. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll do a piece that I wrote that I had critiqued yesterday in another group.
Sure.
I've gotten several comments on it over the night, and I actually read this last week in the group to you guys. So I have it up right now, and I'll read it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a I wouldn't. It's not the conclusion of a second piece, but it's more of a. It's a piece where I wrote one part, and I brought up some concepts, and here I kind of describe them a little more. So when reading the whole piece, this is kind of like an explanation of what's already been put out there for in reading. Several ferry companies operate at the end of Doolin's main road because 3 islands sit offshore. The 3 islands together are called the Iron Islands. Inisheer is the closest and about a half an hour offshore. Distance plus demand as well as deep water make it necessary for several companies to operate. This includes ferries of different sizes. The 2 o'clock ferry at Inisheer honors all tickets. The ferry drives straight into the base of the cliffs and gently stops a few feet away. The dark gray stone, which is Ireland, comes straight out of the deep blue water and shoots straight up into the air for hundreds of feet and is covered by millions of green shamrocks. A rock sits a few feet away with tiny shells, just little lines, is home for hundreds of little white birds who sit and chat in the most high-pitched, screeching noise imaginable. The 2 o'clock ferry arrives before 2. I watch the ferry fill up, including the lower compartment and roof. I finally catch on and I hand my bicycle to the ferry hand. The boarding spot is towards the rear where the seats are filled, so I walk forward and take my seat. The amount of seats on the roof is more than 4 times 4. The ferry is filled with adults who are humbled and filled with awe. The look of anticipation on their face is simply beautiful, myself included. We sit and wait patiently for the picture show we were about to see, the show we were part of. The ferry spends almost an hour before turning towards Doolin. A wild dolphin sits on top of the water. He not only makes himself known to humans, he makes himself the life of the party. The main road to Doolin comes to an end near the ferry landing. I find danger before heading out for the day. A curb is built into the middle of the main road, and I fly right over it towards the unsuspecting ferrymen and myself. We were just lucky I hold on tight. The island riding is glorious. I ride towards the guest house. I start to think of the lady. She is a business person who rents out rooms in her house while she and her family live there at the same time. She is a wife and mother. Before I travel to Ireland, I call her on the telephone. I speak about my suitcase, which is oversized because of my bicycle. I ask her permission to bring my bike into her house, and she says, okay. We know each other now, and for my breakfast, she makes me salmon mixed with scrambled eggs and sliced apples with fresh cream in my coffee, while I see the day travelers are lucky to get a bagel. I tell the lady of my guest house my grandmother is from County Clare. which is home to Doolin. We speak about my family name, which is Driscoll. Richard, I know at least 10 Driscolls right here in Doolin. She invites me into her car for a short sightseeing trip to Innis, which is a small city with narrow roads and streets made of stone, just to show me what might be part of my family history. Out of kindness. Bike to learn, bike for warmth. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Richard
Thank
provides virtually every week in our writing workshops another interesting way of looking at the world from his bicycle.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He bicycles throughout New York City. He lives in the Bronx. Sometimes he takes a train to the New Jersey shore with his bicycle. And so we begin to appreciate there's another sort of intermediate level of looking at the world while you're moving from a bicycle. Next on our list is Donna Zifrin.
Donna, I'm going to, before you introduce yourself, I'm going to be attempting to share screen your gorgeous art. You have 4 pieces, please.
Okay, thank you. You can do that now. Oh no.
Do we?
Okay.
Are we
Yes,
good? Yes. Next time we'll find a more elegant way to do this.
Okay.
Because your art is gorgeous.
Thanks.
And number 4. Beautiful. Okay, please go right ahead.
Okay. All right. My first poem is called Childhood Trip by Memory Lane. It is all that I remember, and I do remember notes of my childhood that springs forth. I was 4 years ahead of King and 8 years shy of Lennon. Years of finding my maturity. Years of knowing this skin. I have thought of the history of these notes and the choices given to participate. Feminism embraced and manifested under lives lost aboard in 1989. It is where I found myself engaged. To the joys of unknown, I learned to count and I learned of this skin. How jarring it was to them. I saw myself in 2008 as that girl walking with change. I learned of the skin and how jarring it remains. And then my other piece is called The Fight for Social Justice. Let us march on till victory is won. The Black Lives Matter protesters are doing just that. They are marching until victory is won. Bitter the chastened rod felt in the days when hope on board had died. The police probation is today's chastened rod. It was used against the civil rights marches in the 1960s. It is still a weapon of choice against the marches of today. The hope for equality was never given, therefore, we were all treated with dignity. Hope is dead. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We cried so much for years, it feels like a river overflowing. We have come treading our path through the bloodshed of slaughter. Floyd Martin Gardner, the blood now stains the streets of today. The words of Black National Anthem, lift every voice and sing, are so powerful. The words of Black National Anthem have power. They resonate the emotion, the struggles that African Americans are faced with today. Ring with harmony of liberty. People are lifting their voices all over the world, looking for liberty, justice, peace, and acceptance. We will keep on marching until our mission is accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, Donna, thank you. I'm so glad. I love the way Zoom brings us all together. Oh, I'm so grateful.
Yes.
Next up on our list is Paula Rogovin.
Hi. The first poem I wrote last week at our Sunday workshop, to which you're all invited, of course, every Sunday at this same time. First poem is called Valentine's Day. And just so you know, this is cacao. This is a pod. And this is what is used to make chocolate. In case you didn't know, our tasty chocolate comes from a pot of cacao. Picture this: young children picking cacao, then cutting it with machetes. Hardly an image lovebirds would want to see as they profess their love with chocolate hearts on Valentine's Day. End child labor. The next poem is from one of our prompts from, I think it may have been last week or the week before, Snow Owls and Eagles. That was the prompt. And so the poem is called It's a Good Sign. It's a good sign, eagles fishing between sheets of ice on the Hackensack River, home of the Lenape people. It's a good sign, snow owls wowing photographers in Central Park, another home of the Lenape people. It's a good sign, Congresswoman Deb Haaland, soon heading the Department of Interior for all of America, stolen home of Native peoples. It's a good sign. And this is about Bernie Sanders's mittens. I'm bananas. I'm bananas over the memes of Bernie Sanders mittens, mittens made from old sweaters and fleece from plastic bottles. That's good old Bernie, Bing Bernie. For others, perhaps something they could profit from. For Bernie, it's money for the food pantry. That's Bernie, letting his mittens teach, letting his mittens feed hungry people. And the picture that I made on combat paper, a Frontline paper, is something that I made for Jim Gilbert. And some of you know Jim. He lives here in Teaneck, a good friend for about 50 years, 45, 48 years. And he wrote this book called Dope Fiend's Redemption. And there was a celebration of his new book. So I made that artwork for him because back in the 70s, we did so many things together. Before we had even moved to Teaneck, we did anti-war work, anti-Vietnam War work. We did peace and justice work. We did battle with Columbia Presbyterian and Columbia University, who were expanding throughout the neighborhood like an octopus. And but during Jim's life, and in this book, you can read about how some people along the way, could have been an aunt, it could have been just a friend, an uncle, they said certain words to him that stayed in his heart and guided him. They just stayed in there, but there were times, where he was in jail for whatever, and he was on drugs and alcohol and everything that he describes very vividly in this book. But those few words just kind of stayed. And we all know how those kind of words form who we are. So here's the poem I wrote for him. Dope Fiend's Redemption. Throughout Jim's harsh early years, flickering glimmers of inspiration burned inside. Years later, those glimmers burst into a raging fire amid a widening community of activists. And those are my,
All right.
my poems. And again, I really hope any of you who want come on Sundays to our workshop, Warrior Writer workshop.
Next up is Tara Kraus.
Before I round it
How
out,
do we get that link to your Warrior Writers workshop?
I send it out. We send it out every week. And if you would like to be invited, I'll write your name down and make sure you get the link.
And would you mind me sending other people, veterans or the like, to that workshop? Because I'm constantly in conversation with people who could, maybe one use it, but maybe one just want to participate in something like that.
Yes.
I had somebody from Alameda last week that might like it.
Yeah.
cool.
We'd love it. You know, it's military family members. My son served in the Marines. Nancy's. We all of us are either veterans or military family members. But we welcome other people. So just send a note to me and Jan, or to me.
Sure.
I see Donna wants to be added. Okay, wonderful.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, let us know. We'd love you to be there. And I tell you, we used to meet monthly before COVID.
Right.
And the amazing thing was, we of course, we went online, we found Zoom. And it was a monthly thing before that. And it was so meaningful and important to us that we went weekly.
Yeah.
Except for 1 week since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been every single week.
Yeah, it's
And
grown
it's
as
not a requirement that you come every week, but
Yeah.
we're there every week.
it's like a fulcrum of the week. It's begun. Although I do miss the potluck that we would bring to that fellowship in the Frontline Gallery. I love that. That was like a sacred space of community and sharing. In fact, I hold an eternal debt of gratitude for Warrior Writers and that sacred space. Before I round us out, is Rich Cleary with us? Did he sign on? Rich? Okay, we'll catch you up next time. How about Nate? Has Nate turned in? We'd love to hear his work. Okay, Nate, we'll give you a rain check. Got to have your work, because it moves us. So, Jim Fallon, what do you got for us? Talk to us. You want to unmute? There you go.
All right.
Yes.
I have a few pictures that I had sent in. I don't know if you got them all, but one is the one you saw, Keys to the City, which anybody and every one of you who know me know I'm an avid jazz fan, and a lot of my work that's the theme of a lot of my work, and which is a real, in the very beginning, how this whole art thing started. When we were in the Secaucus Arts Vet Center, there was a woman there. She said she wanted to start an art class. And I told her I never drew anything but stickmen. And she said, that's a start. And the theme there was, we were supposed to only go for 8 weeks. And it was paint your pain. So we were veterans who came in. And I'm just glad that over the years, how painting pain seems to have faded for us older vets. And I think that was probably, art was probably the reason that happened. And so that was the real plus. And they still want to continue as soon as this madness is over with. They still want to continue with the Secaucus Art Group. And I'll be happy to, love going back.
What are the other pieces?
Some of the other pieces were because of African American Month. I have a Black Lives Matter thing of the street where we live, where a fist comes up through the ground. I had another one of Martin Luther King saying he's been to the top of the mountain. And that's
A Harlem Rent Party?
Oh, Harlem Rent Party. That was another one that
Throwing a party for your landlord.
actually when it happened was during the 20s and 30s. That was a real thing in Harlem because of it was an economic epidemic then. And that's how people got together. The musicians would come over and play at a party, and people would pass the hat. And that's how they got the rent parties going. I was lucky enough when I owned a jazz club, got to meet a lot of these old time jazz musicians and blues singers. And they used to tell me stories of these rent parties and of all the amazing things that happened to them along what they call the Chitlin circuit, playing in clubs down south. And it was just a lot of amazing stories. And I guess that's about all I have.
I love your stories. I could sit here all day into tomorrow just listening to your stories.
The clean ones.
The dirty ones too. Peg, do you have anything to share?
Just that I'm so happy to be here on the fringes of all you great people who write poetry and paint art, and I'm here to enjoy every minute of it. And to also be such great friends with so many of you is a blessing. And I'm glad to be here. And happy Valentine's Day.
And to you, madam. Yeah.
And Peg, you're a military family member, so you are
anytime
welcome to come on Sundays.
I did PTSD with my father, and second round.
So come join us on Sundays.
Some Sunday, I'm not good with prompts.
Well,
if you give me a prompt, I would get nervous.
No, you know what though?
I'd have to leave.
Peg, we have prompts, and then you can write your whatever you want. You don't have to use our prompts.
Okay.
It's always welcome.
Nancy and you will teach me.
Or maybe you'll teach us.
Oh.
Okay. Lindsay, you haven't said anything. What do you got, madam?
I don't really have anything to add. I'm happy. It was fun to come in and listen to all you fine folks speak. So thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this opportunity and asking me to be involved so we could stream it to, everyone who can't participate. We have a few people who've been watching us the whole time, so that's really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So thank you for everyone who came in and watched and didn't participate as well. And thank you for having me, and thank you for doing all this. This is awesome.
Well, Lindsay, but we all had the idea. You made it happen. Okay, so and we pulled you in on yesterday on your day off. So, man, thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, with that, I will round us out on the spoken word. I have 2 poems today to make an offering with. Second Wind. Stoicism only gets me through. It doesn't fuel my heart of creativity. Dogged tenacity, clenched jaws, battling on up my Sparta mountain snowbergs. January's crescendos of naked all-American Christian nationalism. The inauguration, not concrete, inevitable, fried my synapses, my muscle memory of endurance, hope, muffled and bleak. In the deep winter, I count the 41 days to spring. I'm losing the bone truth to never doubt spring. But my community of poets and artists held out and flourished during the pandemic descent of 2020-21 by celebrating the vacuum as a creative retreat collective, though virtual. In the void of losing the daily routines of supposed normal, we found fresh pockets of fresh air, though masked, we could play through. Ripe experimental new virtual hybrid performance in art spaces, phoenix rising from the primal fires of storytelling. And myriads, collective millions of no's in the streets and myriads of demanded futures and the tragic echoing truth, I can't breathe. We found oxygen. Can we fuel a second wind? Thank you. And my last offering, Frontline Paper Pulp Manifesting. My dear sister of Frontline Paper, deep ritual baths, cleansing vats, pulp manifesting our art dreams, prayers, sorrows, and hopes. Let us mask and glove up. We'll open the doors downstairs to max air circulation to ward off the virus. We will wear crowns of white roses. My jazzman son will sit upstairs, social distancing enough on the staircase with his guitar and channel healing chords from the cosmos. Chop down the banana stalks at the full of the moon. Bring your friend's unintended gift and your heart's fresh wounding. I will bring the last few fall roses from my garden grown wild, along with sweet Annie and mugwort, spent Daucus carota, and effervescent asters in full bloom. Together we will wret, tear, scrape, steam, weep, and then pulp. I will stand with you, dear sister, listen and witness, hold space for you as you hog move the swirls of pain in the water, rhythmic dance of your pelvis and shoulders, breathing in peace, grounding of the earth of the ancients, breathing out all that which must be released. We will bow in gratitude and celebrate your Kuching transformation into soulful beauty. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and a shout out to my jazzman son, Rob Krause, who's always up for the adventure, jazz guitarist, performance major, senior at University of the Arts. And he titled the piece today, we composed it on the fly, you know, creative magic on demand. And he titled the music for the film strip as The Frontline Romp. Okay, so.
Yay, Rob.
Yeah, Rob. Slaying it. Okay, and Jan, you wanna, we've got, wow, we did pretty well on timing, huh?
Yeah, we're doing great on time. I lost track of what else we're going to talk about because my phone clicked off. I just have to click it back on.
We want to talk about Talia's film. Man,
Yeah.
What an experience.
We definitely have some time. So very, very quickly in terms of warrior writers.
Oh, please, yes.
We do a local version of what goes on across the country. Warrior Writers has workshop groups from Boston to the West Coast many places in between. And now that things have shifted online, if you go to the warriorwriters.org website, you can pick up, and anybody around the world who wants to can join in. They have writing groups for like the general, I want to call it groups of people, veterans and family members. But there's also focused ones for women veterans as an example. And so if they're, and then periodically they have events, just like we're doing this event here. In other parts of the country, they periodically have online events. And we also interact with other groups. So that in New York City, as an example, many of us have participated over the years with a theater group that sponsors Veterans Voices programs. I forgot the name of the theater group for the moment. Terry, you had participated last year. Do you remember the overall name?
Poetic Theater Productions, Voices, Veterans Voices. Thank you.
And you could go to their website. They have programs with other groups of people as well. The idea is to provide a way for people to express their experiences. And as an example, being a trans person, until recently, you didn't see programs for people who were trans. Well, they weren't getting any forums, no ability to speak to their experiences. We've seen, you know, on the national arena, one president say he doesn't want people who are trans to serve in the military. Now we have a change in administrations. Presumably that's going to change. When I was in the military, nobody talked about being gay because you weren't allowed to. And when VVAW was very active as an activist group, I knew that some of the other vets maybe or maybe not were gay, but again, society didn't really provide a forum in the late 60s amongst all the rebellion for people to talk from their own personal experiences. So one of the major things that I think has happened in the current century is more and more forums for people to talk about the variety of experiences of being human. And it often intersects because there were women in the military in the American Revolution and in the Civil War, etc. So we're going to provide a little bit of a discussion. It doesn't probably work so well as a discussion per se, but several of us had the amazing experience of being in a film which is now being shown through the San Francisco Film Festival, called "It's Not a War Story." This is not a war story. And Talia Lagusi, who put this together, when she asked many of us to participate in doing workshops, paper making workshops, and my first question to her when we arrived in upstate New York to be in a location that's an actual paper making workshop, I said, I'm not very good at remembering the script. And she says, no worries. You just say what feels appropriate to the situation. So we became actors of ourselves. There's probably some other terminology for that, but in a story that had actors, professional actors, telling the larger story, within the middle of all of that are these real veterans doing real things, having real conversations in real time, and are surrounded by a storyline going on around us, in which, when you see the film, bits and pieces of things that we say appear in the background in ways that, like, wow, that is so true to what it is we do. And in this particular case, the idea of the story is a young woman veteran is in trouble for fighting with her brother, has to do something or she's going to get into more trouble. And somebody directs her to this arts group. And you see the interaction of these vets welcoming somebody in, making fun of somebody who was a Marine MP, who's a woman, but in a good-hearted kind of way. We know that for many of us in the military, Marines and Army and Navy and Air Force often get into fights and bars. One of the amazing things that I discovered years ago when we did these programs in VA hospital settings, this was the only occasion I've ever experienced where vets of different generations from different military backgrounds realized this was not the place to one-up each other, to put each other down, but they would do that in between the sessions. They'd be putting somebody down who's over there. And then when we've got focused on our sessions, they listen to each other, which is a big, huge part of what it is that we do. Somebody has something to say, you don't say, I got a better story. No, you listen to what they've got to say. And one of the interesting things about how this film is put together, nobody ever finishes their story. It's a comment upon how society doesn't really want to hear what you have to say. In this particular case, family members of this woman who was in the Marines, they don't want to hear it. And so much of the storyline has to do with various vets are trying to tell their story, but they're getting cut off in all kinds of ways. And it keeps going like this. But you see this other group doing their artwork, and then, which is what we do, we talk about, oh, okay, so how would you illustrate that story? You know, is it going to be some artwork? Is it going to be written? Is it going to be a combination of the two? That is the middle ground of this movie. Several other people, Kevin, as an example, I think we're in almost every scene that was filmed, so he hopefully can tell us more about the segments filmed in Brooklyn. I wasn't there in Brooklyn.
Kevin, you want to speak, please?
Kevin's still muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to unmute him.
Oh, he's unmuted.
No, yeah.
But sorry about that, Kevin. I didn't want to squelch your voice.
Oh, that's okay. So what you wanted to know specifically about the locations in Brooklyn?
Well, you were through in all these various places, so there was also I was thrown off by the fact that by the time I arrived at the place in Trumansburg, many scenes had already been done. I'm kind of like dropped into the middle of something.
Yeah. Well, the only other one that I participated in, I think outside of the Trumansburg scenes in the paper studio, was one that happened at a welder shop in Brooklyn. That's where you see the scene where Nate and Eli are in the alleyway hanging paper, and we're out back, and I'm holding a guitar, and a couple other people are reading poetry and I think hanging up paper. Yeah, that was behind a welding shop, which was like, you know, the perfect setting for that particular scene, I thought. And that's of course supposed to be like the exterior of the studio. It's been kind of challenging for me to watch the film and not see the studio as the place where I'm, you know, I go there every day. It's, you know, it's right next to me. So it's just kind of weird to see that. And then, you know, see the Brooklyn scenes and put the two together. So I don't know, it's been a challenge, but.
And your music was in it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I had a song in the scene where Talia's character Isabel and Sam's character Will are working on a project together. Talia was trying to, she wanted like a Leonard Cohen sounding song for that scene, and she couldn't find it. So I said, well, I can take a shot at writing something that would fit there. And she really loved it. So she put the song that I wrote in. It's called The Wound That Will Not Heal. Yeah. It's on, if anybody wants to hear it, it's on platforms, Spotify and whatnot. So
Cool.
there's a soundtrack. I made a playlist soundtrack. So if you like the music in the film, that's on Spotify as well.
What's your Spotify?
If you search "This Is Not a War Story," it will come up.
Cool.
Yeah. Or you can
okay.
access it from the website, acousticpictures.org, I believe it is.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
I also
Yeah.
wanted to point out that in that scene in the alleyway, Talia's character reads a poem as though she had written it, which actually I think you had written that poem.
Yeah. That's what was interesting about the film. Talia, she had an idea for, what her character might say in certain scenes, but then she would say like, okay, well, do you think you could write, a poem for this, and maybe that would reveal certain aspects of her character.
Yeah.
Like that, the poem Detainee, I wrote that one, and then also the other one that was called Where the World Has, wait, no, it's the one that she reads towards the end. I think it's called The World You Once Loved. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Walt wants to get into this conversation.
Just unmute.
That's it.
There.
We good?
Now, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Being part of that film was one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had. And I was there, the 4 days that Jan and I and everybody was up in Trumansburg. Most of the crew was up there longer, but we were there for 4 days worth of work. And also a couple of days in Brooklyn for the gallery scene and for the exterior studio scenes that Kevin was describing. And it was, I realized, making artwork, it doesn't necessarily go from start to finish. There's different elements of it that are made in different orders, and then it's assembled. And one of the most fascinating things that I found was, for all the experience we've had with Combat Paper and Frontline Arts, we've been interviewed, we've been on NPR, we've been in the newspapers and on radio and all of this and that. We've been photographed by professional photographers. We've had a lot of experiences. And we were part of somebody's work of art. We were the paint on the canvas, and it got put up there in different times and different sequence, and she knew what she was doing. And it's a great friggin' movie, I think. Nancy and I just saw it last night? Friday night. Now I'd seen it twice before, earlier cuts, but we saw the finished festival version, and it was wonderful. And the thing that struck me that time that I hadn't thought of before, but which is really important, and things happened, was that how timely this movie is right now, with the chaos and craziness and insanity of this country right now. And and the importance of the film happens in little bits and pieces. When Kevin and Eli and Nate are there cutting rag and just laughing, having a good time, and then they're talking about future veterans and kind of in a mocking way, as Jan was describing, how we'll kind of put each other down because of our service and all of that. And they're talking about future veterans, the Space Force in their tinfoil uniforms, and I thought, wow. And then the great scene when Talia goes up in the woods to meet Sam, and she curses the guy in the pickup truck with his Confederate flag. And she says, "What's that all about?" And he's saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm a fucking racist." Coming in the wake of the Capitol riots and the insurrection, I think that's really important. And then in the interviews afterwards, when Sam was talking so eloquently, just about his presence as an African-American man, being one of a bunch of veterans, And the relationship between him and Talia is, it's sort of secondary in a way, although it's important, because our bit of inclusivity, or our minority group, is we're veterans, regardless of our gender or the color of our skin, and that's a big deal. Now, this morning, I went to the grocery store, bought a bunch of groceries, came back. I was getting ready for this. I wanted to have breakfast, so I got myself some cereal. I sat down. I had a copy of the New York Times op-ed page from yesterday. I'd saved an article. There's an article there by a man named Elliot Ackerman, who some of you, Kevin probably knows him. I know Jan knows him. He was a Marine Corps officer in Iraq. He did 5 tours of duty. He holds a Silver Star and Purple Heart, and he's he's a distinguished writer. He's for real. And he had an op-ed in yesterday's paper called "My Veteran Problem," and I put it aside. So I read it. It's short, and it is specifically about a movie that's just been released called Cherry. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but it's some glitzy brothers who make these action and adventure movies have released this movie. It's based on an autobiographical novel by an Iraq veteran / addict / thief / convict who wrote this book in 2018. Ackerman had read it, and then he saw the movie, and he was sort of horrified because of the timing of this movie. At a time when people are looking at these friggin' assholes who assaulted the Capitol and saying so many of them are veterans, this movie comes out, and in his eyes, it sort of reinforced that stereotype. And I thought immediately, we got to get a hold of Elliot Ackerman and tell him to see our movie, because we totally push back on that mindset. And Ackerman, in the course of this op-ed, explores his own feelings, and he doesn't look to place blame anywhere. But he does talk about us as veterans and how we have to try to change our own fellow veterans. And he wasn't talking about us doing that in a crusading way, but either by example or through what we do, through what Talia has let us do, telling the story. That movie's pretty dark, but to me, by the end of the movie, this tough kind of hope starts to appear. And I told her that months and months ago, a long time ago, when we saw it the second time. And I think she was kind of amused that I said that.
Good word, tough, a phrase, tough hope.
Yeah, well, that's, we're veterans. Our sense of hope is probably
it's grounded,
different.
though. It's grounded.
Yeah. So anyway, I immediately started trying to track down contact information for Elliot Ackerman. I texted Jan, I texted Talia, she texted me, I texted her again. And a friend of mine who I haven't seen in years and years, he got me his website and email address. So I took the post that I have on Facebook that has the links to the movie, and I sent it to Elliot Ackerman. I don't know whether he got it. I mean, the man is, he's a successful writer, so he probably gets tons of friggin' emails. But those are the kind of people, I think it would be lucky if we can try and work on getting some influencers, shall we say. I hate to use modern day terms like that, but people like that to see this movie, because this is an important movie that we're in, and I'm honored to be part of it.
I hope that it would be stand with the genre of war films.
Absolutely.
And anti-war films.
Yeah. Well, I heard a long time ago, before I even was a veteran, when I was just a soldier's son, that any movie about war, if it's any good and halfway honest, winds up being an anti-war movie.
Yeah. Does anybody, Jim, you were part of it. You had your showcase. What did you feel about the film? Hold on a minute. Sorry. Sleep the switch.
Oh, I love it, and I agree completely with Walt. It was really the only two scenes I was in was one at the vet center with my buddy Frank Wagner,
Oh, I know it. Oh.
and the other one was in Brooklyn at the museum. But we had a good time both times, and I'm so glad, of course, that I'm part of it too. You know, a very small part.
Well,
my cameo.
Small,
My
but
cameo.
you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not writing my acceptance speech yet.
But you have your tux on layaway, right?
That's right. I'll see you on the red carpet.
I know for me, I have never seen a film that was so moving of a character of a woman vet. That when Talia invited a few of us, Jenny were there, for a rough cut, went up to New School City to watch it. And as soon as the credits rolled, I busted out of the screening room, sprinted through the New School lobby, bashed through the doors, and vomited on the street in that New York City night. That was how moved I was. And how proud, grateful to be, in this community that through our lived experiences, wrestle out of our experience that tough hope and that jarring art, and that Talia could see this, and talk about a kick-ass indie filmmaker auteur. She screenwriter, director, hell, she was calling in food craft. I'm sure she probably even used a camera sometimes. Then editor, wow, that is an indie. To call her a queen, we call her empress. But anybody else where we've been talking, anybody else want to share that? Anything before we move on to future notes? Okay, Rachel, would you like to fill us in? We're all ears about, God, we've survived this time. We're surviving the deep winter. Take us to spring, please. Oh, let me unmute you.
Yep. There we go. I was getting warnings. No, amazing job, everyone. And I just want to reiterate that I am so proud of that film. Talia, the Empress, the Extraordinaire, indeed. There's nothing she doesn't do. I think even Sam called her a beast.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, everybody was amazing, and it couldn't have been any more timely. I believe it was, oh, she's commenting on Facebook. I believe it was filmed in like 2019, maybe parts of 2018, before so much got upended this past year. And exactly like what was said, what was mentioned, the teasing about cutting up Space Force uniforms. The quote about, what the F does a Confederate flag mean in New York other than I'm a racist? I mean, it just could not have been any more poignant. And the Q&A, I'm going to try to post that. I think it's just on YouTube. But it was so impactful to have a Black lead playing a veteran, because that just isn't seen that often. And that really also made this story poignant and powerful. So kudos to everyone. I think this needs to go far, and I want to do everything we can to share and promote it. I'd like to host an event, like a big interview around it if possible. So let's see. But yeah, really, really amazing. Before I say anything else, do we want to, I wonder if we could share a quick image of what Mark just completed in the studio. And I don't know how the best way to do that. I have it on my phone. Or Mark,
Yes, so do I. I'm trying. I don't know whether my boomer fingertips can do this fast. Okay, hold on. With me here. You guys teach me well. It's like my service.
I'm hearing those airdrop noises.
Airdropping you, baby. One moment, lost a step. Give me enough treats and break down the subtexts, the subtasks of the. Oh, you're seeing all the my messy. Okay, sorry guys. Please talk amongst yourselves while I.
Rachel, can you drop it into the share if Tara makes you the host?
I would have to go through the same hullabaloo. I think Tara's closer to being there.
Yep, hold on. Yeah, why don't you begin on the news as I wrestle this?
All right,
I'll take.
I'm so sorry to put you on the spot. I'm gonna do the old.
No, it's
school.
Keep me humble.
Here it is on my screen.
Oh, there you go. There you go. When all else failed, go old school. Thank you.
Awesome. Great engineering.
He needs to give a class on that.
I know. Mark needs to be teaching if he wants.
Yeah, I'd take the class. Yeah.
Yes. Did you want to say anything about it, Mark? Is he unmutable? There we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, that's derived from a series of iPad drawings. It's the Susquehanna River. I think a lot of folks have seen some iterations of it over, because it was part of a larger project. But no, it seemed to turn out quite well. So we'll see what the next one comes out like. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
But yes, speaking of teaching, so yeah, I guess I'll just say a few future words. Besides all my griping, I am really happy to be in Zoom with y'all. This has been an amazing afternoon. It's nice to see everybody. And we really have been making a lot of headway lately with hybrid and virtual classes at Frontline Arts. Thanks really to a lot of hard work by Ron and by Walt and Mike and Lindsay and many staff and volunteers. We're really trying to re-engineer ways to ship materials with kind of like simple at-home ways to make paper, to make plates, to do different types of printing at home when you don't really have a press or many things at all. And that's hard to do. I think any of the other teachers and artists, paper makers, print makers in the room realize that that's quite a feat, but we are up to the task. And we also have a new and exciting collaboration with Mia Salazar of Claymore Vets happening right now, which I'm very excited about. And thank you so much to Ron for being a huge help with that. I know he's been going in every week now and helping to engineer this paper clay that we're going to have another, Claymore is having a class in sculpting Las Meninas in a couple weeks at the beginning of March, right after we have a holograph class with Len, and then hopefully paper making at home too. So that's really cool. And we're also top secretly trying to engineer a way to screen print at home. I'm very excited. I shouldn't even talk about it, but with a well-known artist in Jersey here, who's really incredible. So we are doing some research and R&D on that right now too. So stay tuned. But otherwise, we have key holder rental going on in the studio. We've got day renters. We're trying to schedule a couple people at a time on a Frontline Paper Sunday in line with the virtual streams. We've got all kinds of exhibitions going on virtually and talks, and thanks to Lindsay for being behind the scenes with all of that. We're trying to move outdoors. We're gonna have classes in the parking lot when the weather's fine again. Yes! And we are connecting to so many new communities with the Scrubs Paper Project and relaunching the Migration Project, and also with first responders. And all of these communities are ending up overlapping, which is really touching and amazing to me. You know, even I think the last time we met at the end of December, I had read writing from a nurse in Newark, and thanks to a connection from Mia, I now have an evening news producer interviewing her in just a couple days. And that is just so incredible and so touching. I can't wait to see how that pans out. And we are also being called to work with other communities in the Bronx and address the disproportionate effects of the pandemic on Black and Brown communities and the huge inequities in vaccine distribution. So this is a lot, and we're being called to the task, and I feel like it's the least that we can do at Frontline. And thanks also again to Ron for being our engineer, along with all of Walt's pulp making and daily paper batches at the studio. I know he's working alongside of Ron constantly. I know I freaked out about Kevlar going into the beater, but I also know that Ron is asking all the experts around the world, and he is the person to figure it out. And it's a really impactful and important and amazing project. So I'm honored. This is amazing. There is hope. We're moving forward, and I really look forward to connecting with everyone. So thank you.
And Rachel, the fact that you led us through this time when it was dark, we didn't know whether to close shop, and Thursday would be my turn to vacuum. And all of you guys on the crew, you held in there. You held in through challenges that I can't even imagine. And you kept giving your hearts. And you came back, and Rachel, you opened up the heavens to rain down emergency funding, new directions. And I cannot tell you words enough to express the amazement, this regeneration, this new directions. And, you know, it almost becomes, wow, if just a little bit of this had happened, But the fact that a whole blossoming comes out of adversity in a community of poets and artists, printmakers, paper makers, my life's good. Bury me under the roses, you know? so so I just thank you. I thank you all. You're very precious to me, and let's rock on. Jan, do you have anything you'd like to say? I'm unmuting you. I'm trying to. There we go. Sorry.
It's been a fantastic day. What else would we have done with all this snow and ice out there? However, I'm urging everybody to get out of your house right now and go outside and look for the birds.
Follow the eagles.
Follow the eagles.
They're coming back.
What's happening here along the Hackensack River, because water bodies to the north of us have been frozen. This is the first open water of a smaller river. It's not the Hudson River, but the fish are practically close to the surface. This area where we live, Teaneck, and some smaller towns just to the north of us.
Ron, even we're near Ron. Yeah.
The river is not particularly because it's tidal. When the tide goes out, the river is not very deep, and the birds can see the fish, so that seagulls have showed up as well as the eagles. You don't usually see seagulls in a wooded area. And their nests are popping up in various parts of North Jersey and other parts of New Jersey. And amazingly enough, we live within a few blocks of an eagle nest in a neighboring town.
Ron's town.
That's just in the front, the big, huge, tall tree in the front yard, which just happens to be something that these birds figured out. Most people aren't going to pay any attention to us. And they can fly right over to the river and back again. A few people who have discovered this have been sworn to secrecy. Every once in a while, somebody like a newspaper columnist who lives nearby blabs because he's so proud that this eagle's nest is in his town. We recently discovered, because somebody put something up on Facebook they really shouldn't have, in a neighboring town to the north, if I drive down a certain street to the end, to just a circle, you know, for the end of the street, we were surrounded one day by eagles in the trees. And we've been back several times, and they don't always come back to the same place at the same time. So last night, as an example, when we went there at dusk, it was eagle after eagle after eagle after eagle flying north to the next town.
Oh.
So on another recent day, as we were there during the day, when we turned around and we hadn't seen very much, and we start back to the main street of this area, there are two eagles overhead flying around doing the mating dance right over the main street of this town. Now, most people out aren't going to pay any attention to whatever the hell is overhead. So I had to do some research and find out, yeah, they're someplace near their nest. So we've been just astounded by the fact that, as I've done some research, this has been reported over the years that something's happened in the Hackensack River. So they'll all go away in the spring. Some of them have come from distant places, and they'll go back to those distant places. But the fact that on these really snowy and icy times of the year, this is where at least some of them show up, is just absolutely astounding. And so for us, it was another adventure when it's so dreary out. Let's go out and look for the eagles.
And they've made a huge comeback, which is wonderful. And thanks to all the people who fought against pesticides, and the eagles have come back. But that's great.
Well, anything else, Jan?
I have nothing more to say because I want to go outside.
Okay. my co-poets and artists, for those of us that haven't bailed on YouTube yet, we thank you for your endurance and your love, and hopefully we brought a spark of delight on your Valentine's Day. And we will see you next year for Cut Your Heart Out 3.
Yeah.
Okay, love you all. Ciao, bello.
Ciao, ciao.